a lot of times people don't realize that they can worship Allah in a lot of different ways. And one of those ways is with sort of your professional life and sort of what your professional capacity, what you do for a living. There was an example that happened in Medina. I was sort of, in Medina, if you're a student, you don't really have, unless you have some sort of, gold mine somewhere or somebody supporting you, you don't have money at all. And so every month it's a struggle. You don't know how you're going to pay for food and your expenses and stuff like that. You just kind of have to rely on Allah and kind of put yourself out there and trust Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I was trying to get certain things in order. I always had a lot of car trouble in Medina, and anybody who knew me in Medina, I used to carry around, the gaskets would burst all the time. I used to carry around a big jug of water. And I used to drive around the car until I would see the temperature gauge start to go up, which meant that I had a water leak in the line somewhere, and I had to pull over the car, and then I have to fill up the radiator with water again, and then just tap water, and then screw it back on, and I'd be able to drive for a couple more days, and then it would, the water would run out or leak out, and then I'd have to keep on filling it. So that was kind of my situation for a long time in Medina. And there was one point where my car broke down, and I didn't have any money to fix it. But I took it to a certain garage. I was recommended, a certain mechanic. And it was a little bit hard to believe because this mechanic, they dealt with like luxury cars. So I pull up and I have my Sawboon, like they call it. It was one of the old sort of Chevy Caprice. It was like a very old boxy car. There's all these Benzes and, BMWs and all these sorts of cars that are around. And here comes my dirty, broken down car. And the brother was very nice, and he kind of was, he's like, okay, he figured out very, very quickly what was wrong with it. And he told me to come back in a week or something like that. And I didn't have any money. I had no idea how I was going to pay for it to get fixed, but I had to have this car. I had my lessons I had to get to. I lived off campus. I had to get to the university for my studies. And so I literally just that day, I remember I had no idea how I was going to pay for it. I scrounged up every single last, cent that I had, and it wasn't very much. And just said, you know what, Bismillah, let's just go and let's see what happens. And, maybe a miracle will happen, and it'll only be 25 riyals or something like that. And I got there and he fixed it, and he said, this is fi sabilillah. And he said, I'm not going to charge you anything for it. He's like, I love students of knowledge, and obviously, you're here studying, you're far from your family. And I was just so overwhelmed, I literally had my back up against the wall at that point in my life. And Allah sent me people like that, every single time. We think that horrible things are going to happen, and horrible things do happen to people. But sometimes you need to put yourself in a vulnerable situation in order to truly find that Allah is watching you and Allah is taking care of you, and that there is blessing and there is bounty in the world, and that there's good people out there. And also for people who are in that position, know that you can actually change somebody. I mean, I still make dua for that brother, and I always remember him and this sort of story. So that could be you, if you're not in a position of hardship, but you're in a position where you can help somebody out like that in a situation. And this is a way where you can worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.